Good morning, all you cool cats, or good evening for those actually listening when the podcast release. Welcome to MindMesh. My name's Chayton, and I'm joined by Silence. That's right, it's your very first solo episode of MindMesh, and let me tell you, I got my cup of coffee ready, as well as a glass of water to wash it down. And yeah, we're just gonna go for it. I mean, I do have a couple topics. One in particular, well, two in particular. Of course, the one of them's in date, one of them's out of date, because one of them we just haven't had time to talk about, but I do find that it's a very interesting topic. So I do want to touch on it a little bit, but that'll be in the back half, the good old back half of the podcast after the lovely ad break. But besides that, if you hear any screaming, yelling, yelping, barking, whining, and or general discourse behind me, just know there is a reason for that. Well, not even behind me. It's out of the room, out of my little recording space. But just know that there's a reason. We got a puppy. Me and my girlfriend, we decided, the pandemic has locked us inside for months on end. I don't actually know what day it is of quarantine, but we decided that, now's the right time to raise a puppy. So by the time that we can actually leave the house, he'll be trained. I guess. I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. We do have a current dog. Her name is Nebula. She is 2.5. We don't know her exact birthday. Both dogs we adopted. Both dogs we don't know their exact birthday. But we adopted Nebula when she was around 5 months old. So yeah, and we've had her for 2 years now. So good times. She's been a great dog. She's part border collie, part who knows what else. We got one of those dog DNA tests, which, by the way, that's the weirdest fucking process you'll ever go through if you ever want to know the DNA of your dog. I don't know why anyone would really. I mean, I understand why you want to go through it, just for like health concerns if you don't know if it has a certain breed in it. Of course, there are health problems with every main breed of dog. It's actually better to have a mixed breed than a purebred. Can I just say that right now? Because like purebreds have so many fucking dysfunctional problems, whereas if you mix them with a different breed, sometimes it'll actually take those problems completely away. But anyways, that's besides the point. The doggy DNA tests, basically all they give you is, of course, there's different ones. The one that we used on Nebula was literally a giant cotton swab that we had to swab the back of her like cheek. If you know, I don't know how to explain this. On your cheekbones or your jawbone, how it like you have your cheeks and then there's that little back pouch you can almost feel where like the tendons all connect the bone. I gotta sneeze. Oh God. Let's see if I can do it. Pure will. I don't have to sneeze. And I'm good. Okay. So it's a giant cotton swab that you basically have to just stick in the back of your dog's throat, swab around, put it in a test tube, and send it off. And 2 weeks later, you'll get an email being like, "Oh, we found out what dog breed it is." And so we found out Nebula is part border collie, or part herd dog, which is border collie or shepherd, really. And then she's like 25% hound, and then 25% staffy, which American Staffordshire Terrier, which is, I think, pit bull, technically. I don't know. She doesn't look pit bull to me. We in her entire time of us ever owning her, someone has said that her face looks like a pit bull a grand total of one time, and that was our crazy neighbor. So, who knows? Who knows? Really, if she even looks like a pit bull. But this new puppy, I've always wanted a beagle. I don't quite know why. Most people that like become infatuated with beagles watch Shiloh as a kid. I've never seen it. I know of it because I was super into beagles, so I looked into it, but I've never watched Shiloh. But I don't know. I just over the years I have found myself where I'll get on those weird internet rabbit holes. Where there's my alarm. It's saying time to wake up, even though I'm already awake. But I found myself over the years just kind of going down internet rabbit holes, watching every YouTube video under the sun about beagle training and puppies and how they behave and how they act. And of course, um, looking at lovely imagery online of beagles, good old Google image search for beagles. And then I've been following a bunch of rescue groups all over the United States that rescue beagles. Because I mean, beagles they're the tester breed. I don't know if it's still a thing. I'm pretty sure it might still be a thing. I don't know. Animal testing for products and stuff is really weird. But no, beagles were like a huge test subject in labs. I remember. Maybe here. I'm out at my computer. Let's see what I can find. Let's see. Beagle lab testing. Is it still a thing? Hope of thousands of beagles using laboratory experiments. That's 2019, 2017. So yeah, it's still pretty prevalent. But I know that like beagles were such a huge major breed just for like lab testing, and I don't know. I always had this kind of soft spot, being like, I want to save them all. I know there's going to be hundreds of thousands of them, but I want to save them. Gosh. Goodness me, what happened? No, but I've always had this kind of affinity towards beagles, and oh gosh, everything's just going wrong. My mic stand's breaking, I'm coughing, I'm sneezing. What is going on with this episode? Literally, my computer's trying to tell me, hey, you don't need to record a podcast episode, but it's already too late. But no, I'm going to keep saying this over and over, but I have this affinity for beagles, and me and my girlfriend have been talking for about half a year about getting another puppy, and this pandemic, made us bite the bullet and say, yeah, you know what, let's do it. So we decided to work with an adoption agency, because we only ever found, where we live, we only ever found one in a shelter, and it was not too kind to our current dog. We took her just to kind of feel it out, see what would happen, and it was a bad time. So we decided, you know what, let's work with an agency that can actually help us find a dog that's like really good with other dogs, so that way that's not an issue. So on the other side of our state of which we live, I'm not going to give too much away, even though I feel like me and Fish over the years have really just completely screwed the pooch on that one. We always told ourselves we're going to keep anonymous. We're just going to talk about cool stuff. We're just going to say we live in the South. And we're never going to give our state away. And lo and behold, countless times we have spilled the beans on like what city we're in or what state we're in. It's a grand old time. It truly is. But on the opposite side of the state of which we live, we found a beagle adoption agency that I've honestly been following for probably about the past 2 years or so. Because, it was always kind of that big old pipe dream. And we sent in an application. We worked out all the details. And lo and behold, they had a litter of puppies that were ready for adoption. And we got one. Now, it's not a purebred beagle. It's mixed with something. We don't quite know what it's mixed with, but he's a small little boy. He's technically on pace with beagles of his age, size and weight wise. So we think whatever he's mixed with, it's either that there's a lot of mix that's in him, or he just got the short straw and he pulled the 90% beagle card and 10% whatever else he is. So we're probably going to buy another DNA test, swab the back of his throat, and then 2 weeks later learn that he's like part Yorkie or some shit. But he's a sweet little guy. He's putting us through our paces right now. He's definitely mischievous. He loves to explore and bite and pull and see just what he can get away with. And even when we tell him no, he still tries to get away with it. And, it's just general puppy stuff. Of course, when we got Nebula, she was right on the cusp of getting out of that puppy stage, I guess. Mainly getting out of the whole teething and chewing phase. We got her when she was around 5 months old. So that's like right at the edge. She still lost maybe 2 or 3 teeth when we got her, but she was mainly through the whole puppy mouthing, puppy chewing phase. So it was really easy to get her through, especially with her shepherd smarts. She picks up actions and commands really easily and just social cues. Which I mean, he is too. He's a very quick learner. I guess I should say his name. Gosh, I got a cough again. Oh goodness. What's wrong? Gotta take a swig of water. His name is Quill. Reason behind the name is unless you are super sleuth, can solve a Rubik's Cube in 5 seconds. Or I don't know what the world record is right now. It's probably like 3 or 2 seconds, knowing Rubik's Cubers. His name's Quill because we have a bit of a Gardens of the Galaxy theme. We named Nebula after Nebula. So we decided that Star-Lord just didn't roll off the tongue real easily. So we went with Quill for Peter Quill. So we got a Gardens of the Galaxy. If we ever get another dog down the road, preferably something big and clumsy and resembles somewhat of a Scoobert Doobert, we'll probably name it Groot. Who knows? We'll just continue down this line. Maybe we'll get a cat. Never know. We're both allergic to cats, but we might get a cat. Goodness, my throat is just all over the place. I'm not used to recording. It's tough with this whole like pandemic thing to like coordinate, get together and like actually record a podcast. So it's my throat and my good old radio voice isn't doing its thing. But yeah, so we got a puppy. We've been training him. We've had him for about 2 weeks now. Yeah, 2 weeks. And it's been a blast. He definitely has allowed us, or has not allowed us, to sleep very long. He wakes up. He was doing good there for the first week. I'll say that much. He was sleeping. He was going to bed at like 8 or 9 and then sleeping in until about 7. So I was like, yeah, that's good. I'm down for a dog that takes a 12-hour nap time at night. And then this week he has started slowly pushing less and less sleep into his mind. So he's been falling asleep at 9, 10 o'clock and waking up at 6. It's, it's one of those things. I'm just thankful that he's sleeping through the night. We got to skip the whole step of the puppy waking up every 3 hours in the night because he couldn't hold his bowel movements or control his bladder, which he still can't control his bladder, but at least he sleeps through the night. That's a general plus. But yeah, I don't know. Puppies are just it's a different breed entirely of like. You can, it's kind of similar when you adopt any dog because, hold on, let me take a drink. Because the thing is that when you adopt a dog, of course, you don't know where they lived before. You don't know if it was a loving family that had to give up their dog because of circumstances beyond their control, be it a move or be it the dog didn't get along with with a newborn baby or something along the lines of that. So you never really know what a dog's previous life was when you adopted him. Which is also kind of why we went the puppy route, is because we already have a dog. And when we got Nebula, we didn't have to worry about how she reacted with other dogs because she was our first dog. But with the second dog, we really had to worry about, like, they have to be good with Nebula at the get-go. So that's kind of why we went the puppy route. We were looking at a few dogs that were around 1 or 2, which would match better age-wise with Nebula. But it's just one of those things where it kind of worked out because we sent in an application. About 3 days later, got approved. And yeah, we got a puppy. But basically, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this. All I'm saying is that puppies are hard. They're little demon children. They got sharp ass baby teeth that they don't lose very easily. They don't know any form of manners, but it's also like you're tending to a toddler in a sense. They aren't going to learn those cues until you show them those cues over and over and over and over again, for like 4 or 5 months up to a year. It takes a lot of time to get a well-mannered dog, just like a well-mannered child. Uh, it's also that's always been a weird analogy to compare a dog to a child, but like so many people say that their dog is their fur baby or treat their pets as a child. I mean, I kind of fall into that same boat, but it's also because my love for animals. But I don't know. I just don't like the comparison because I feel like there isn't really a comparison. Like it's a completely different beast. Haha. Funny joke. Uh, I really I gotta take a speech class. I used to not be bad about doing the ums and the huhs and the thus, but now I'm see there it is. But now it's pretty bad. I have really I've this whole pandemic's made me a lot dumber. I haven't been able to study up. I haven't been able to explore the world, talk to people, socialize. It's been terrible. God, I don't have anything else to say about puppies. Besides, best time to get a puppy's in the spring and the summer. Because then they'll be pretty grown and okay by winter time. So you don't have to go out during the snow and wait for them to tinkle for like 20 minutes. They'll just go because they know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else puppy-wise I want to talk about. I don't think so. It's really weird. Can I just say it's kind of weird doing this without someone sitting beside me talking to me. But hopefully this won't be like a common occurrence. Just because, hopefully next time there'll be a guest or Fish will be here, or who knows? You never know. But with that being said, I think I'm going to go to an ad break. I mean, who knows? This is probably going to be a short episode. The second topic I'll probably have a lot more to say about, but puppies.
Look, Fish, I need to know something. I need to know. Have you heard?
Yeah.
You have?
Are
you sure?
Possibly. You can tell me though.
Have you heard of Anchor?
Like the thing that's on like boats?
No. Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. I'll let you explain. You said you knew about it.
Oh yeah. I remember now.
Okay.
It's free.
It's free?
Yeah, there's
like absolutely free, no charge.
No charge. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer.
Wait, phone? You can just pull out your phone
and edit your podcast right from it. And
that's
record
wild. That's absolutely wild. What else does it do?
Well, you can distribute your podcast, or Anchor will distribute your podcast for you.
Where?
So it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else. Many more.
Wait, so like Google Podcasts and all of those, you can hear it using Anchor? Oh my, really? What else do they do?
You can make money from your own podcast with no minimum listenership.
No minimum listenership? Are you kidding me?
Man.
You can just make money from making a podcast?
Yeah,
I didn't know
man.
you could do that.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
Wait, so you're telling me that if our listeners want to make a podcast, all they have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started and make their own podcast?
Yes, that's all they have to do is download
all they have to do?
The free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
That's absolutely wild. What a great steal.
What a great steal.
Welcome back, my fellow podcast listeners. Welcome back to the MindMesh podcast. It's Chayton here once again. I didn't even do the intro to the podcast. I feel like we're so many episodes in. I think this is either 31 or 32. But I feel like we've gotten to the point where, like, if you've listened this far, you know what the podcast is about. But it's also one of those things where, like, well, what if someone randomly finds our page on YouTube or Spotify, and then the first link is always, I believe, the latest episode, and then they're going to click on it, and they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Let's see. This is episode 31. Wow, awesome. But yeah, welcome back to the podcast all about random ideas, thoughts, topics, and internet rabbit holes. We're doing good. Something I want to talk about right now is just the adaptation of entertainment. I don't know if that's the best way to word this, but recently, not recently, it was a few weeks back. But AMC announced that they would not be showing any more Universal Pictures movies because they released, I believe it was Trolls World Tour, and maybe it was Invisible Man Universal. I don't remember, but basically I know for sure. Trolls World Tour, good old Trolls 2, movie of the year, 10 out of 10, would completely recommend. But they released that for rent online because, of course, all the theaters are closed. No one can go out and watch a movie, and basically most production companies had two choices: either delay their film basically a year or into the fall, which might still be pushed back. Who knows? We'll have to sit back and see. Or release it online for an exorbitant amount of $20, which so many people complain about, but I don't see any reason to complain unless, of course, you're one of those people that just goes to the movies alone. But for the most part, most movies make most of their monies from families. So to me, it makes sense for good old families because then they're not having to pay $50, $60 for all their tickets. They're just having to pay $20 and then they can go grab snacks out of their pantry. Win-win. They also don't have to spend $50 on popcorn. It's one of those things where I think the whole doing a simultaneous digital release and the theatrical release works. It earns the production company money. The problem is that it loses the theater chains money. But once again, it's one of those things where it's like it's a double-edged sword. Would you rather go watch a movie and then have a random baby crying in the background, or allow that person to rent the movie at home and be able to watch it in peace and quiet with their toddler that might start wailing? But at least it doesn't affect you who's in the theater. But yeah, AMC banned Universal Pictures films from being in their theaters, and then I believe Regal theaters also did the same. They said it with AMC, and they were like, no, we're not going to show Universal Pictures either. And I don't know. For me, it's one of those things where I understand where they're coming from, but it's also like they're closed. How are they, they're not making any money anyways, and then it's just gonna dig the production companies more in the hole to not release the films and just sit on them. Like, they already poured so much money into marketing, and then they're gonna have to do a second stage of marketing whenever the movie actually gets released, and then that's just more money. So it's just like, it's either the production company digs themselves into a deeper hole, or they actually make money from the movie while the theaters are closed. Because it's, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's just, it's kind of a weird back and forth ping pong match between the two right now, because it's a bunch of like he said, she said nonsense. But for me, it's a smart play. I mean, I honestly, like, there's something about, especially being in film, there's something about going to a theater and sitting down and watching a movie on the big screen. There's just something about it that I will always love, I will always cherish, and I will always want to do. But the thing is that movie theaters have been the same for a while. Movie theaters have been kind of the same experience for a long time. And they also only make their money basically from concessions. The only time a theater actually makes money from ticket sales is once a movie's been in there for about 3 weekends. Once that 3 weekends hits, then I think they get like 50%. And then if it keeps going, that percentage gets higher and higher until they hit that 100% threshold. But like, movie theaters literally make no money from movies on movie tickets for about the first month. They make most of their money from concessions, which is why a lovely small popcorn's like $7.50. But and the thing is that that's been the experience for so long. Movie theaters have not like adapted or done anything new and interesting to draw in an internet crowd and give them an exclusive experience more than, oh, we got a big screen and awesome sound. Which I know that's mostly what a movie's about, is big screen, awesome sound. But it's one of those things where there are so many people that have home theater setups now. I mean, yes, it's not as big of a screen, and yes, it's not as loud of a sound, but it's in a place that they're comfortable, and bigger TVs are getting cheaper and cheaper. Giant 4K TVs are getting cheaper and cheaper. And it's just one of those things where people are a lot more comfortable sitting on their own couch than going out and sitting in a big room full of smelly people watching a film. Now, I'm not saying that theaters are going to die because of Universal's decision to do this whole digital release type deal. I think it's going to be a benefit in the long run because now movie theaters actually have competition, and you cannot evolve and adapt unless you have competition, which movie theaters have not really had in a while. I mean, you could say that like, oh, Netflix, Hulu, streaming services, they're competitors for movie theaters. Not really, because streaming services still don't get the movies until months down the line when they actually get releases. The movie theaters still get them first. I mean, the only thing that you could really say is that the exclusives that Netflix and Hulu and all them produce, Disney Plus, but it's still one of those things where it doesn't phase movie theaters because they still get a bunch of exclusive content first. Well, now that tide is shifting, where now these streaming services, these I don't know how to, I mean, like renting these online renting services as well with Prime and Vudu and Fandango and all that stuff. I mean, with this giant flux of these movies going straight to digital for rent so that way you can actually watch them, it's going to cause a major shift in the theatrical chain. And now theaters are going to have to, get kind of creative, which we actually, was it last semester? It was last year, I believe. In one of my classes, we were actually talking about like how we saw theaters going down the road and what we thought was going to make them popular again. Because I mean, there's always been those like fads that happen with movie theaters. Of course, we had the movement of 3D. The first go around with 3D with the good old blue and red glasses. And then we had the resurgence of real 3D with the polarized glasses. And then we had several theaters that were 4DX theaters that had the rumbling chairs and like the, what was it? It was like Spy Kids 4D, I think they called it, where they gave you a bunch of random sniffing cards. And whenever a certain number would pop up on the screen, you have to like shuffle through your little packet of cards and be like, oh, number 3, strawberry shortcake. It smells kind of like plastic. Chemical fumes. What card is this? But so they had the 4D experience where the chairs rumbled with what was ever happening. They actually moved. I think Disney World, or maybe it was Universal. I don't know. They had rides where you went to a theater. The one I remember was A Bug's Life. So was Disney, where you went to this giant theater, you sat on blocks, and like you could feel like the ants crawling under you because like everything would move, and there was like water spritzers that will like shoot out onto you when it rained. But so a lot of theaters have fads, and I think the one that is pretty big right now is technically large format, which is for both sound and video. For sound, it's Dolby Atmos, which is instead of the typical speaker setup, which is the center channels, left, right, back, I believe. Is that 5.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? No, 7.1. A lot of theaters are 7.1 because the bass is the 0.1. But Dolby Atmos adds a completely new side of things because they also add speakers in the floors and on the ceiling. So you can literally, like, if you, the best example I can give is say someone's in like the cellar of an old house and there's someone walking above them on the creaky wood flooring and like you can't see them. Well, what they can do with sound is they can literally start them in the front of the room. And then as they're walking over the character, you can literally have the creaking of the sound to go above the audience's heads So they can be like, oh, and sound experience. But the thing is that you can literally also buy Dolby Atmos kits for your house now. I think they literally make sound bars that have the speakers specifically tuned and like turned at certain angles to like bounce off the ceiling and the floor to give you the exact same experience. The other thing, large format wise, is the screen, because we all know the typical like giant rectangular movie theater screen. Well, there are certain theaters now. I think there's a single one in Tennessee. Maybe a single one in Tennessee. I don't actually remember the exact name of this type of screen, but which I also think it's another revamp, because I think what I learned during my time in film history was there was actually a projector set up back in the day that basically you filmed on 3 cameras at once. So you got this giant super wide aspect ratio, and then in the theaters it would be 3 projectors that would cast these, and you would line them up on this giant like circular screen that was rounded, because if it wasn't, audiences would not be able to watch it, because they'd have to be breaking their necks whipping back and forth to actually watch anything. But that's had a resurgence, because there are theaters now that have like 180-degree screens, so it like goes straight from your peripheral vision all the way up front. Which, I mean, now that I say that, there's also the whole IMAX experience where the screen is also massive, and like the IMAX domes that you used to see as a kid going into museums that were, I don't know how to describe them. Those were like 360 or 360 projection mapping, I think. I don't know. It's a weird, but that's currently a kind of trend that's coming up, is big sound, big picture, which, I mean, has always been the thing. It's literally every single time there's ever been any form of expansion with movies, it's always been, oh, well, the last movie we filmed was in 4K. Well, we got a projector now that's 16K, so that's like 4 times 4K. It's always been like, we got to go bigger. We got to go until literally you cannot perceive what is real and what is film anymore. It's going to be so high detail that when you film a person's face and you show it to someone, it's going to be uncanny valley type deal. Like literally just from filming real life people, it's going to become uncanny valley, because there's going to be so much detail that we aren't used to seeing, but now these cameras can see. But I guess the point that I'm trying to say is that all forms of entertainment have to adapt. I mean, you talk about video games and the whole microtransaction thing that happened. Well, I mean, it's still happening, but when everyone got super pissed off about it a year or 2 years ago, and it's basically like there were certain companies that were getting super greedy with it. And then there's other companies that were like, oh, well, the microtransactions are only for costumes, or like there's no like full on benefit for doing this stuff. It was loot boxes. Loot boxes, microtransactions, to me, they fall in the same boat. Just loot boxes lead themselves more towards gambling. But if it's just cosmetic stuff, I don't see a problem with it. But there are some companies that decided they wanted to be greedy with microtransactions. People got up in arms, and then the companies were like, look, video games from like AAA companies have been $60 since like the N64. And games have gotten a lot harder to make since the N64, as well as inflation has happened since the N64. So really, games should cost a whole lot more, but we're not going to, because if we raised it like even $10, people would have a little fit. Which, I mean, yeah, people would. So microtransactions were kind of the way around it. I mean, same thing with DLC. Same thing with the like special editions. Games that came with the season passes, or games that came with like statues, or games that came with the soundtrack. But what kind of sucks is that a lot of games can only be $60 if they're made by like a huge studio. If it's like an indie developer, God forbid they ask $60 for their game. God forbid. You best be putting your game online for like $15 to $25 because you ain't getting that AAA experience. There's just no way. Even though you probably poured heart and soul, and probably not as much time, but like enough time to warrant that $60 price tag, as most games that are even AAA are probably worth way more than $60 for how much time and effort and grueling sweat and overworked, overpaid, or underpaid stuff all these devs had to do. Like, God forbid you ask for more. It's one of those things where like even the gaming industry is behind when it comes to adapting, but it's because that they tried to. It's kind of different with theaters, because if the gaming industry tried to adapt to the times so that way, there could be better working conditions, people would raise a fit because they're like, well, it's always been this. And it's just like, well, they have to change or they're going to be a dying breed type deal. But, it's always one of those things. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Another thing I wanted to touch on was radio. I have had many years in the radio scene, being a host, DJ, disc jockey. I think that's the same thing. Board operator, remote host. I've done the gambit on the radio side of things. But radio stations during this pandemic are having to adapt, because it's one of those things where like TV shows aren't able to be aired or filmed, so people are having to like do reruns of their shows, or not people. The networks are having to do reruns of shows. They don't have any new content, so people are going out trying to find new things, and radio is even trying to adapt. I know the station that I started working at has started buying live streaming equipment so they could live stream their shows to try and get like more investment from people on social media, because people aren't driving around listening to their radios to call in for the ads that they put out, or like to listen. So they're having to do new things to try to adapt to the times that they're in. And it's one of those things where this is just a general cycle of life. You could think, oh, radio's been the same forever, it's not going to change. Well, think about it this way. It used to just be radio, and then satellite radio came into the picture. So there was a big debacle between that, and radio stations had to up their game to up their quality to match satellite. So that way people were like, oh, well, satellite radio is really expensive when I could just turn on my FM stereo and it sounds just as good. But then you also have to take into account that streaming radio came into play with iHeartRadio, with Pandora, then Spotify, and all of these streaming services that let you actually pick out the music. So it was one of those things where like radio's always had to compete with other things. But because of that, they've always had to adapt and become better than the other things to keep themselves afloat. Whereas the gaming industry, yes, they've done that with technically, I don't know the word to use, but on the technical side of things, they've definitely advanced. But on the profit side of things, they haven't really. Movie theaters are kind of on the same boat, where they keep advancing technologically, but profit-wise, they don't, because they're not drawing more people in with these technological advancements in a sense. I mean, yes, they're seeing more ticket sales, same as like games are seeing more sales, but because they have to keep their prices the same or people will riot, they have to find new ways of doing things, which currently it's kind of hard to do, especially when the country's closed. But it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens once the world, opens back up, the world heals, and we see movie theaters open. And you can't go see Fast and Furious 27 at AMC or Regal Theaters. It's going to be a sad time, But I'm done babbling. I'm done taking up your time. Sorry that I had to talk about puppies and movie theaters of all things. Gosh, who knows? Just know the next time you hear my voice, I'm probably going to be with someone and you won't have to deal with me rambling. With that being said, thank you so much for listening to the MindMesh podcast. My name's Chayton. I'm joined by myself, and make sure to tune in at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Mondays. I'm not going to say which Mondays because we're still on good old pandemic schedule. But yeah, Mondays, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. on your favorite podcast platforms, be it Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you listen on, we're there. And then, of course, 2 days later at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday, you have the lovely MindMesh YouTube channel where you get to see all the fancy graphics that we have. Then we release them on there for all our YouTube folk. But with that being said, thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to see you again. Oh, wow. God, I'm just going. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you in a bit. Bye.